You're listening to God's Plan Radio. Do not give up. The beginning is always the hardest. Here's your host, Russ Conway.
Good afternoon, everybody. I hope y'all are having a blessed Thursday or Friday Eve, as I like to call it. We have a special podcast that we are doing for y'all tonight. I actually got a phone call yesterday afternoon from a wonderful good friend of mine and brother in Christ, and he said, "Brother, I'm going to be in town." I said, "Are you?" He's like, "Yes." I was like, "So can you come by?" And he's like, "Sure, brother, let's come on, let's get this thing going." So I actually am able to present a real good friend of mine, and like I said, a brother in Christ, Brother David Midgorden. How are we doing tonight, brother?
Man, it is an honor to be here with you in your studio here in Springfield. Love being a part of what you're doing, Brother Conway. This is pretty cool.
Well, thank you so much, brother. I do appreciate that. And this is actually the first time I've actually had anybody in my studio. So this is a new thing for me as well as it is for yourself. Am I right?
This is the first time I've ever been on a video podcast.
I'll tell you what, if you're listening now, of course, and you're just now getting on our website, if you want to, these shows can actually be listened to later on through our website, godsplanradio.com, or if you're a YouTuber, go on to youtube.com, search God's Plan Radio, and you can find our channels and you can watch them later on as well too. Basically, I had Brother David Midgorden come on, and when I mentioned earlier that I was going to be leading what the Lord, has laid on his heart, it's ironic how the Lord does work in certain ways, because what I felt like the plot was going to go for tonight has altered, but I feel like it's actually altered in a good way, because most of our guests that we have on the show with us lately have been educational and have been a way of motivating and pursuing their own dream. And I've learned that you're going and doing what's called bivocational ministry. Is that correct? Did I say that right?
Well, I'm definitely participating in bivocational ministry. That is for sure.
So when he told me that he was doing bivocational ministry, I'm not going to lie, I had to go on to Google and I had to look it up, because I had no idea what it was. I thought, well, maybe it's like a bilingual thing, different languages, something like that. You never know. So when I found out what it was, I just started reading it this afternoon, and it's actually a lot more than you would think it is. So basically, what I was going to do is I was going to have Brother Midgorden here try to just answer a couple of questions that I have. If y'all have any questions, feel free to text us on the show, 931-452-4389, or you can email me at godsplanradio@gmail.com if you have any questions that you'd like to know about what bivocational ministry is, other than what I'm going to ask tonight, brother. Why don't you just try to explain to us what exactly bivocational ministry is?
Well, Brother Conway, I have found out what bivocational ministry is kind of by default. I fell into it. I was in the military when I found Jesus and began to live for the Lord, and as I served the Lord, and I had about 2-3 years left on my contract in the military, and I was just serving the Lord. But when I got out of the Army, I was determined that I was going to be in ministry. And I got out, and I looked around at the church, and I came up to the church, and what I realized was there was still a lot to do, and I still had bills to pay, but I still felt a calling in the ministry. And so I had to leave the church doors, and I had to go out there, and I had to get a job. And so when I stepped out of the military and I got my first job, I became a bivocational minister. I became a minister who had employment outside of the church, secular employment, while I served the Lord in the church. So
that's awesome. I mean, I would have never even thought. I mean, because so many times, I think a lot of the times when you hear about deacons and you hear about bishops and stuff, and most of these churches, they're rather large churches, and their finances are, I guess, more stable, that they can pay them to do a full-time job. Even my cousin, he's actually out in Tennessee right now doing a full-time job in the music ministry. But that's not always the case. Too many times there's people like you and like me that live our everyday lives and want to serve the Lord, and you need to provide for your family.
And the Bible says that he that doesn't provide for his own house is worse than an infidel. So we can have all the faith, we can have all the passion, and we can have that burden just exploding within us. But we've got to understand that our family needs to be taken care of, and we can't push that aside. We've got to make sure that we do what we have to do to pay the bills. And it's not separate. We say a secular job, but it's not separate. It's all part of what God is doing. The job that we do outside of the work for God that we want to do, it all comes together in the way that God does things. But we've got to find contentment in that. And we've got to understand that God is doing things in His time with the things that He's done inside of us, with the things that He's doing inside of everyone else, and what He's doing in the church. And we've just got to roll with it, baby.
So now when you first came into this bivocational, I'm pretty sure doing a ministry where it requires you to be at church, to teach services, you were even involved in the youth ministry as well too. That's got to take up a lot of your time. How does that affect your lifestyle with your family and your wife and even your church family?
Well, brother, there's the B word, and it's balance. We have got to know when it's time to focus on what, and that really comes from our core. When we pray, God helps us to recenter our priorities. If there needs to be some more time spent on the home front, we're going to feel that. We're going to see Caleb coming up to the door of your studio and giving you those eyes, and then you're going to kind of shake, and you're going to say, you know what, I actually haven't spent much time with Caleb lately, And, when we're in prayer and we're in pursuit of ministry and God's calling for us, God is going to help us to know when we need to spend more time on a portion of our life. Now, in a perfect world, brother, the Covey family has made billions of dollars providing us with scheduling material and ways to organize your life in very, very good ways. And in a perfect world, we write our schedules down, we give everything its own portion of time, and everything is roses. But in real life, we've got to pay attention to things as things unfold. And in ministry, in a growing ministry, you've just got to roll with the punches and know God is going to help you to manage the situation that He's put into your hands. And that's how He does it. But we got to have balance.
That's the key word, I think, like you said too. Even when you're not going to school and bivocational and all this other stuff, I can only imagine, if you're still going through college, you're meeting your girlfriend, you're about to get married, you're about to have a family, you're a minister for your church, so it all takes balance.
And brother, I've done it.
That's what I say.
I've been in college. I've got my master's degree now, and I got my master's degree through a company that was paying for my master's degree while I worked for them, while working at the church and having a family. And my grandpa told me one time, he goes, David, I think some people have this disease. It's called the I do everything disease, and they feel like it's a badge of honor when they start listing off all these things that they do. And I don't want to have that disease. But what I'm saying is, it can be done.
Oh yeah,
you can pursue the passion that God has burdened in your heart and still accomplish being a good man or a good woman. You can still accomplish being a good student and study. You can still accomplish being the minister that God has called you to do. You just have to take every day with prayer and understand that God has got this thing under control. Some things work out, and that's great. Some things don't. We learn from it, and we move on.
If you're just tuning in now to our podcast, I've got my good friend, brother in Christ, Brother David Midgorden with me, and he is actually all the way from Hinesville visiting with me here in the studio. Of course, I didn't make him drive all this way just to be in the studio. He was in town, and I had to get him by to just spend time with him and fellowship. But we're actually going to take a real quick break and go to one of the songs I have selected for y'all tonight. And when we get back, we're going to ask him some more questions for you young people out there that are into possibly wanting to do what he is doing. And we'll see if he can give you all some tips and some suggestions on how to balance everything in your life. So we'll be back right after this. Welcome back to our show. I am Russ Conway, your podcaster for God's Plan Radio. And if you're just now tuning in, I have a very special guest with me this afternoon, Brother David Midgorden from my church out in Life UPC in Hinesville. And the brother was just in the area and gave me a call yesterday and said, hey, I want to come by and be on the show. And I said, no problem, man. Let's do it. So through the sheer faith and trust of God and everything that's happened, the Lord's opening up our eyes and our minds right now because we're learning about bivocational ministry. And Brother David here is actually giving us the ins and outs of what it is. And I've asked him a couple of questions. If y'all want to, feel free to chime in or text us on the show to ask more questions. You can text us at 931-452-4389 or email me at godsplanradio@gmail.com, and I'll be able to ask him the questions that you have for him. But I know I have a few more questions that I want to know is for young people like yourself when you got out the military, how would you advise them for moving forward in their life to try to learn about it? What would you say would be the best tool to use at their disposal to get the thing done?
Brother Conway, I can only speak from my own experience, and I can tell you one thing I learned quickly was to not discount everything that happened until I started in the actual ministry. Not to consider anything that I was doing outside of the ministry as a waste. And I kind of did that a little bit. I feel like I know God can handle things and he can, turn bad situations into good things. But when I was in the Army, I was a commo guy. I had a really good communications job. But when I got out, I said I didn't want anything to do with that. I was getting in the ministry, and I just want to encourage young people to not discount what we're doing because we want to do something else. See how it's all going to tie together. Another thing, I got in the military initially to get the college money. I wasn't in church yet. I just, I didn't have anything going for me. I was like, Army, college, good. And I got out. I had this 4-year degree that the Army was wanting to give me, but all I wanted was the ministry. And I sat down with Pastor Crutchfield and he said, Brother Dave, I would kind of look at this degree as free money. And he had to kind of, speak into my life a little bit. And what he was saying is, Brother David, what you've done to this point, the good planning and the things that you've done, the hard work, we don't throw it away.
That's right.
Use it. And thank God he did that. And I was able to finish my bachelor's degree. I was able to work some through all that and just be patient with the process of God helping me to become the minister he wanted me to become. And throughout that whole time, brother, I was watching my pastor, who was a full-time paramedic and taking on life down there in Hinesville. And, you don't think about that until later on, but I was watching my pastor work basically 2 full-time jobs. And I think back now, and I'm really appreciative that he dug it out.
I tell you, it's something that when you really get tested by God and he tells you, this is what I want you to do, I want you to go out and I want you to teach my people. He doesn't say, but I'm going to give you a job, I'm going to do this and do that, you're going to get a house, you're going to have a car. You have to go on faith. And it is awesome to hear you talk about, even your own ministry, and then Pastor Crutchfield, which, I respect him wholeheartedly, and y'all have heard on the show before. I've never actually been so closely related to a pastor in a position to where he's like me. He don't make me feel like he's above us. And I know as a man of God, we're supposed to respect him, and that is the key. I'm not saying we don't respect him, but just to know that he did it makes me feel like I know I can do it.
And you're doing it,
and I'm doing it, and
yes,
that's exactly right, because we all have our own ministry in God, and that is just awesome. Now with the bivocational ministry, I guess then, is there classes you can take, or is it just a matter of just kind of learning to balance things like you said before? Or
I think the biggest key is surrounding yourself with ministers who have dug this life out, this ministry out. Like Pastor Crutchfield is a great resource for me when I have concerns about how my work life may be affecting my church ministry life. He's able to walk me through a lot of my questions. Elder Wilson, the founder of Life, he built the church, and up until a few years ago, he was still driving over to the barbershop and cutting hair, So he's a great resource for me to go and talk to and say, Elder Wilson, I know you built this church from the ground up, and the whole time you were doing this, building a work for God, you were out there cutting hair. How did you handle this situation here? And these men are great resources, and I believe that all of us are surrounded by people who have, in the process of time, building whatever God has called them to build, has had to go and get the finances for it from somewhere else, and we have the opportunity to tap into that.
Well, I know, and thinking about it too, it's got to be actually good for you in a sense because it's putting you out there.
Absolutely.
You're actually working a job in everyday society. It's opening up doors for you to witness to people.
Yeah.
It's opening up doors for people to see that you're a human being.
Absolutely.
You're not some perfect person. And I think too many times we tend to put pastors up on this podium and say you're perfect. And pastors are perfect, but in a sense they're still human.
Absolutely human. We're all born into sin, shaping into iniquity. We all have to wake up each day and figure out how we're going to go about doing what God has called us to do while balancing our responsibilities. Sometimes it means that we have a full-time position in the church and we can wake up and go to the church and we can, whatever our responsibilities and duties are. And other times it means we're waking up, we're going out there, and we're killing it on our jobs. The Bible says that whatever our hands find to do it with all of our might. We want to be a good example when we're on the workforce, So whatever we're called to do, whether it's in ministry or in life, we do it with all of our heart, and God will honor it.
And I guess as far as even talking about being out there in the world, even with you being home as a bivocational, I mean, in some occasions churches only have one service a week, so during the rest of the week, you still need to work on your ministry with God, but at the same time, like you said, your family's there too, so time management, balancing, all that stuff on there. That's just amazing. But I'll tell you what I'm going to do, actually, if it's okay with you, is I'm going to actually put some information on our site. So that way, if anybody has questions that they want to know, might use you as a resource, if you don't mind, brother. But I will definitely put it on there for young people, because I think too many times, I know when I first was hit with doing the podcast, and I'm only speaking from my own history because that's all I have to go off of. Yeah. The first thing I hit was how. I don't know anything about podcasting. I don't know nothing about what to do. I didn't know where to start. And the thing that I've learned is that everything that we do in our past, all the mistakes, all the things we've accomplished, everything makes us who we are now.
Absolutely.
And even with you in the military, I still believe that may have helped you out in possibly being a little more organized with
big time.
with your lifestyle.
Big time.
I know organization is a big key factor in the military. So my dad was military, so I know my socks had to get rolled up a certain way, my t-shirts had to get folded a certain way.
Yeah.
And he's probably going to end up calling in later on talking about how I didn't make you do that, but he was pretty meticulous.
Well, I'll tell you, the war definitely prepared me for youth ministry.
Oh,
I can guarantee you.
I can imagine.
Pastor told me he came. He said, "Brother David, we'd like you to work with our youth." And I was like, "Well, I'd like to." He said, "Brother David, this is the deal. If you can go through war and come back and have all your men alive, I think you can handle our young people."
I tell you what,
I agree.
That's a blessing. I mean, not trying to take away from the priority of a pastor, but youth ministers, youth pastors. I mean, I can only imagine is what it's like, because my son, he keeps me busy, and he's just one child. When you're the youth minister, you could have anywhere between 30 to 40 plus kids you have to watch, and you're responsible for those
Absolutely.
kids. So
well, brother, whatever you're called to do in the ministry, God is going to give you the ability to handle it. You're going to do it. There's certain things I would have a very difficult time doing in the ministry because it's not the way I'm built. God didn't. It's not my piece of the puzzle, And so me trying to fit in that spot, I'm going to be uncomfortable. I'm going to feel like I don't fit. I'm going to have a hard time doing the things that need to be done there. But youth ministry is where I fit. It's what makes sense. It comes easy to me. It doesn't mean that I'm any better than anybody else. That's where I gravitated to, and I just sunk my teeth in and went with it. Some folks come into the youth ministry and they can't handle it. And it's not because they don't have, they're not that awesome or something. It's just there may be another place for them in the ministry. So I know there are things, sometimes I say to myself, I could never be a pastor. I've had that because I see some of the things that pastor does, and because that dude is an awesome guy. Him and his wife
like a tank.
are great examples. But the Lord really spoke to me a few times, and He confirmed this, that if I called you to be a pastor, I would give you the ability to be a pastor. So don't try to reach over here and say I could never do it by the way you feel now.
That's right.
Because if I call you to do it, I'm going to give you what you need when you get there. And so that's just given me a huge comfort to just do what I'm doing right now with all of my heart. And if he ever has something else for me, what is the saying? He's never going to lead you.
Nor forsake you.
Yep. And he's always going to make a way.
That's right.
So
he's always going to open them doors, and if you try to get to that door before he does, that key won't work until he's ready for that door to unlock.
And if you open that door and you look in it and you see that it's something that you don't think you can handle, when you walk through the door, on the other side of that door is going to be the provision to handle it also.
Well, if you're just tuning into our show, we're wrapping up the actual segment here for Brother David Midgorden. Now, I'm going to put him on the spot. He doesn't even know I'm going to do this, actually, because I do this to all of my interview people that come on. I always ask them to give one cool tidbit about themselves that they don't really tell many people about them, something fun facts, whatever you want to call it. So I'm actually putting him on the spot here. If you could you give us a cool fun fact about yourself that you would like to share?
I don't know how fun this is, but it's kind of weird in the world. But I am really, really into worm composting.
I love it.
There's just something very awesomely interesting about taking garbage and processing and making it into something that plants can use to thrive and create fruits better than some fertilizers that we have.
That is awesome.
That's my fun fact.
Hey, but I mean, that's perfect because you think about it, that's cheap fertilizer. Mm-hmm. That's awesome. I would never have guessed that. No, that's
absolutely
pretty cool.
You wouldn't have.
I
haven't done it in a long time. I've been real busy, but man, there's going to come a day when I can hang some of this secular work up, and I can bust out my compost piles again. And
I tell you what,
that.
Hey, between the church, your bivocation, and your compost pile, you'd be good to go, bro.
Absolutely, bro. That's what I'm aiming for.
Well, we do appreciate you coming on the show this afternoon,
Brother Conway, thank you.
Thank you so much. I love you, brother, and I'm definitely going to try to get you back again when you're in town, of course. And if you want to be a special guest, or if you have a ministry like Brother Midgorden has here, with doing two things at one time to keep up God's kingdom, you want to come on the show and just tell us about what you're doing and whatever your ministry is for God. It's a ministry, and that's what matters. So just email me at godsplanradio@gmail.com, and I'd be glad to hear from you and what exactly you do. Don't forget, tomorrow at 11:10 a.m. Eastern Standard Time, we'll have our live broadcast of God's Plan Radio. And also, too, don't forget, next Tuesday, I will be interviewing Pastor Rufus Parker.
Oh.
So, yeah, I got him to come on the show, too.
That guy.
He ain't coming all the way from Texas, though, so I'm doing him over the phone.
Darn it.
But it's just been awesome, brother. Thank you so much again. And, guys, we're going to go ahead and let Brother Midgorden go, and we'll see y'all tomorrow at 11:10 a.m. Eastern Standard Time. And don't forget, this is available on our website, godsplanradio.com, and on our YouTube channel. Y'all have a good night, guys. We'll see y'all later.
You're listening to God's Plan Radio. Do not give up. The beginning is always the hardest.